You have a mantra or a motto for you personally that you live by?
Yeah, it's fuck that guy. now, that we're going there, it's fuck that guy.
Well, tell me more, dude. Why? What is it? What is it?
Well, you asked and I told you. So
yeah, I love it. Of course, I knew that. By the way, for everybody listening, man, I had breakfast with Darius, and by the end of that breakfast, thanks to my friend Amber and Isaac who were there, and by the end of the breakfast, I was like, I can't wait to have Darius on the show because this shit's gonna be real. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna learn something new for sure. It's gonna be great. So, all right, tell me, what's fuck that guy all about?
Fuck that guy's around everyone that does shit that they shouldn't do. Like there's that. It's that, and I'm the person where I'm the antithesis of that guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm about doing the right thing, like even at your own expense.
Yeah.
And so that guy is selfish. That guy is a motherfucker. That guy puts himself first. That guy is a dick. That guy's not kind. And so we all meet that guy all the time. And when I meet that guy, I'm like, fuck that guy.
Darius Mirshahzadeh. Fucking did it, dude.
Boom!
I said the last name, man. Welcome to the Front Row Dad podcast, brother. I'm excited about this conversation today. Thanks for making time.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I'm so pumped.
So dude, I'm just going to launch right into a question that hit me today when I was looking through some of your stuff. I was listening to your audiobook. I'm looking at your website, and I see on the site, it says my purpose is to live a poetic life. What does that mean, dude?
So I did this program in Dallas called Stagen, which is Conscious Capitalist Leadership Program. They call it the Integral Leadership Program. And the big part of it's like, you got to come up with your core purpose. Now, I got introduced to purpose work through Simon Sinek 11, 12 years ago. And so I always thought about it. And originally I came up with like, I want to live an engaged life. And I want to help those around me to live an engaged life. And I'm really into tools around engagement in my personal life and business. I'm like a strengths finder person, and the values stuff that we'll be talking about. But if you really know me, you know that I just have this thing around words, and it annoys people that love me, but it is what it is, where the words are so meaningful for me that you'll say something and I'll be like, no, you mean blah, blah, blah. And you're like, that's what I just fucking said. And I'm like, but you didn't say it my way. And I mean it. Like I have to say it with my own words. So I don't know what it was I've always there's two things. First of all, my dad's Persian, and Farsi, which is the language of Iran, is a very poetic language. And they have things like their bad words are amazing. Like the worst thing you can say to someone, and any Persian person listening to this is gonna be like, I can't believe you said this on the show, is this word zakhramar, which means from the bite of a snake. And it's like me telling, it's like literally the worst thing you can say to someone on the face of the planet is from the bite of a snake. Yeah. Right. So the whole language is like that. So I think I just grew up, I don't speak Farsi, but I grew up listening to people speak Farsi. And I just think it's just part of my DNA. And so I rewrote my core purpose because I realized when you look up the word poetic, I think in poetry. Like I actually think poetically. Like I put words together that way. I imagine like three-dimensionally in that way. So I'm just kind of a creative person, and that's just really resonated with me, that the word poetic means imaginative with words. And so I was like, there's no better way to describe the life I want to live.
Has there been a quote or a statement or a phrase that you've said that not only is one that you feel most proud of, but maybe other people have quoted you on or repeated?
My friends call them Dariusisms. There's a bunch, but I don't know. Being like off the top of my head, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
You have a mantra or a motto for you personally that you live by?
Yeah, it's fuck that guy. Now now that we're going there, it's fuck that guy.
Well, tell me more, dude. Why? What is it? What is it?
Well, you asked and I told you. So
yeah, I love it. Of course,
so,
I knew that. By the way, for everybody listening, man, I had breakfast with Darius, and by the end of that breakfast, thanks to my friend Amber and Isaac who were there, and by the end of the breakfast, I was like, I can't wait to have Darius on the show because this shit's gonna be real. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna learn something new for sure. It's gonna be great. So, all right, tell me, what's fuck that guy all about?
fuck that guy's around everyone that does shit that they shouldn't do. Like there's that. It's that, and I'm the person where I'm the antithesis of that guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm about doing the right thing, like even at your own expense.
Yeah.
And so that guy is selfish. That guy is a motherfucker. That guy puts himself first. That guy is a dick. That guy's not kind. And so we all meet that guy all the time. And when I meet that guy, I'm like, fuck that guy. and so I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 13 years old was the first time I got into like a real fight. And there's this group of kids who were like Pop Warner football kids who just bullied the shit out of me and my brother. And my mom said something to me. My mom's just like full Italian, just full of fucking just fire, and she's real quiet. Like my mom's very cerebral. She reads like probably like 5 to 10 books a month. Really, really smart lady. And she's quiet, and she's kind of she's really funny, but a little bit introverted. And my mom says this to me. She goes, "Always get the first punch in," right? So my mom's telling me to always get the first punch. Now my dad said rip their eyes out, which shows you my parents.
Were they members of Cobra Kai karate? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Dude, I'm telling you, like when I was getting bullied, my dad's like, you and your brother should poke their eyes out, and he meant it. And my mom said always get in the first punch. So I'm sitting there, I'm getting bullied, and I just like really, really bullied. And it's like 5 or 6 kids bullying me, and they're popular kids. And I just socked this kid in the face as hard as I could and beat the fucking shit out of him. It was like Ralphie from the Christmas Story.
Yeah, it just blew up.
Beating the fucking redheaded kid. By the way, this kid was a redheaded kid who I was beating the fuck out of. His name was Nick Caesar. Fuck you, Nick Caesar. And so, and
this is not a show about forgiveness.
No, maybe a little bit. And so, I've just always been a person that's like, I'm not down with that. I'm not down with picking on people. I'm not down with bullying. I was the kid in high school where if I saw someone getting bullied, I'd walk up, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing to that guy? And I'd stick up for him. And I just always had that internal thing where it's like, fuck that guy. Yeah. Like, that person's not going to, like, that person is committing an injustice right now, and that's not cool. And it's an internal thing. So I don't know. My motto is fuck that guy. Actually, I never realized it until you asked.
Well, I'm glad that we both learned something on this show today. That's, when I think about what's deep about that for me is there's a lot of power in taking a stand against something or someone. And I remember when we were starting Front Row Dads, it was the same thing about, fuck this whole dad bod, bumbling idiot dad can't do that. Dad just says, check with mom constantly. Like that was our fuck that guy. Like, we don't want to be that guy. We wanted to represent something different. We wanted to, when somebody put on a Front Row Dad hat, they were like, that group is a bunch of badass dads who can kick ass in business and at life at home. So I understand that, man. I really appreciate what it feels like to take a stand against somebody that you want to build a whole tribe or a culture or company or, create a family that stands against something, because I think that we need that contrast oftentimes to know what we are is to know what we're not.
Yeah, and I don't think it needs to be done in a way from like a aggressive standpoint or like it's not that it's being on the offense. I'm actually more of a be on the defense guy. Like, hey, I'm not going to start the fight, but I'll fucking end it. I've always thought that. Like, I would never start a fight, but there's like not even 1 inch of my brain that's like, I'm not afraid to end the fight.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the same deal. Like, hey, you're not going to go out there and like talk shit on people that do that. You're just going to represent. And people either resonate with it or not. But if they come at you, hey, gloves are off. Yeah. So that's kind of the way I live my life, I think.
Hey, I referenced it earlier, but I got to bring this back. Were you a Karate Kid fan? Like, do you?
Dude, was I a Karate Kid fan? Look over there behind that's a signed Mr. Miyagi.
Dude, that is so great. Now, have you seen Cobra Kai? Have you seen the series, the follow up?
Dude, I mean, this is like asking me if I suck down air while I'm talking. Yeah. I was like, I like watched it the week it came out, both episodes. I can't wait for the third episode.
Oh my
Or the
god,
third season. Yeah,
it's
I love it.
so good.
I love it.
Were you shocked a little bit of how good it was? Because I was a little blown away. Like I was excited about it because I was a big Karate Kid fan. I mean, I totally was a Karate Kid myself. You know, I studied martial arts. I resonated with that movie completely. I definitely got picked on and bullied when I was in school. And I started watching it, almost thinking like this could be really bad, but it turned out to be amazing. Like what an incredible show.
It's so good. I love how they bring back the old characters, and like I think Dutch died in it though. Is Dutch dead? I think Dutch is dead, which I was kind of bummed about. But I love Dutch. Put him in a boggy bag, Johnny.
Yeah, dude. That show was full of like incredible. There were incredible moments in that show where I thought, dude, the writers are so smart. They really understood human emotion and took you on a roller coaster, and they connected a lot of dots perfectly. I mean, the way they wove that story together, guys, just if you're out there listening and you watch this movie as a kid, you're going to absolutely love it. It's going to be very, very cool. But I just thought about that because that whole idea about being on the defense, right? Like, hey, the fight sometimes comes to you. One of the lines from the movie. Yeah. Let's stay in childhood for a moment about your life growing up, because man, again, going back to breakfast and I learned about your story, it's quite remarkable. Take as much time as you want to unpack it, but let's go back to the very, very beginning, dude, and just walk through your childhood, because I think we can all relate to that, of our own stories. I don't think many people will relate to your exact story, but I do think that it's really I think it's a good base for us to know who you are as a man today. So can you walk us through as much of that as you want?
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't, I think everyone's story is, unique to themselves, right? Obviously. And some are maybe more cliche. Mine is definitely pretty unique in that I grew up in Orange County, California, a multicultural family. My mom's full Italian. My dad was full Persian. And my parents, I have a twin brother and I have a little sister. And so my parents met in the 70s. My dad was 33. My mom was 19. So he was 14 years older, which, like that's definitely an age gap. Now my dad was getting his MBA at Chapman University in Orange County, California. And my mom had just moved from like a small steel mill town outside Western Pennsylvania to California. And she had this kind of rocky relationship with her dad and just wanted to get away from her family, and met my dad. And quickly it was like, they fell in love, and they went to Vegas, they eloped. And my dad had got his MBA. She was still in school, and he moved back to Iran. Now, back then, this is in like the early 70s, like 73 or something, 72. They were sending Iranians to the United States to get their advanced degrees. So my dad came specifically for that. And it was like free education, essentially. And then he went back to Tehran, which was the capital of Iran, and my mom went with him. And back then there was a ton of these Persian dudes that were rolling into the United States and bringing back American girlfriends and wives. That was not unusual. And just to put it into context, when I say Iran, a lot of people are like, oh, that's a scary place. Dude, back then it was the Paris of the Middle East. It was like a fucking cool place to go. And they were super advanced, and dude, the Persians ruled the world at one point. So like, there's a joke in the Persian culture that every guy and girl in Iran thinks they're a prince and princess. And that's just kind of the attitude. That's how they roll. And my dad was no different. Now, my last name is Mirshahzadeh, which stands for descendant of the royal king. So maybe there's some truth there around my family. But my parents moved back there, and my dad just got this baller job where he was crushing it for Mack Truck. He had this really entrepreneurial gig. He was an entrepreneur by nature, but was working for this multinational. They like had to change the comp structure 10 times because he kept breaking it because he was making so much money. And he was just this baller sales guy who was basically the director of sales for the entire Asia and Middle East for this Mack Truck company, for Mack Truck, which is an American company. And so my mom got pregnant with my brother, and I moved back to the United States because we were twins. And this is late 70s, and technological advancement was very different in the Middle East than it was in the United States, and it was pretty unsafe for her to have us there just because she was having complications with her pregnancy. She moves back to the United States, and has us. And for the first year we were born, my dad was in Iran and we were in the United States. And we were premature. We almost died at birth. It's me and my twin brother, Mike. And we ended up in June of 79, when I was a year and 1 month old, we moved back to Iran. And I like literally moved back there to live there. Like, this is like, we're going to live there. Like, I should be speaking Farsi right now and doing business in Iran. Like, that's like what should have happened. Well, in November of 79, if anyone's seen the movie Argo, they started taking American hostages. And we were in the city when that was happening. And my dad was a feisty dude, man. Like, I'm a big guy. I'm 6 foot, 240, 245. And I wrestled like D1 heavyweight in college. And my dad was like 5'7", $130 of just, and he was just like, had little man's complex, dude. Like he would like just total short fuse and would throw down with anybody. Like, this, my dad was I got a long fuse and I'll chill. My dad had very short fuse. My mom said she knew that they were in trouble when there was this guy that came into their home with military fatigues and starts talking shit on Americans. And she's like, I knew we were in trouble when your dad didn't punch him in the face. Right? Which is like, kind of tells you a little bit about my dad being a crazy motherfucker. So right when they took hostages, my family fled Iran. Like total sketchy, fled, got out of the country, was in UK while we're trying to get back to the United States. And then we get in the United States. My dad ends up taking the next 3 years of his life, going back and forth, essentially selling his currency on the black market and assets and stuff to try to get money in the United States to like restart his life over. No, my dad was 41 years old at the time. Total restart. 2 kids, 3 years old, wife that's, my mom was in her late 20s, moves to the United States. Now, my dad kind of had like he's a total entrepreneur, ADD, learning disabilities. And when you're in your 40s, coming to a country you've barely lived in, and you have a learning disability, kind of like a orthographic dyslexic type of guy, typical entrepreneur. Like, you're not learning foreign languages at that age. So my dad's English fucking sucked. And so if you're in the early 80s with shitty English, who cares if you have an MBA? Like, you're not getting a job at like a great company. So my dad does like what a lot of guys then did, is he started a business, and it was a choice between like an arcade, a laundromat, or gas station. So he starts a gas station, literally has no money. He's borrowing money from my grandparents to buy gas to fill the tankers up. And dude, he went from this baller job where he had these aspirations of being like a politician. And I tell people my dad was like, had a Bill Gates type of aspiration to like being a gas station guy. And my mom said something changed in him. He just became this like really angry guy. And he started being really abusive to the family, physically and emotionally. And I remember the first time my dad beat my mom, I was like 3 years old. And that became a theme in my childhood, where there was a lot of abuse, and my dad took his anger out on the family. And he was very disengaged, and he took it out on himself too. He drank, he smoked, he womanized. He just did like, he was a detached guy. He hated his life. I mean, I think he was the funny thing is he was a very loving guy, like a really loving guy. Like, my dad's one of the most loving people I know. I know I'm a very loving guy. My son's very loving. My brother's very loving. I see where we get it from. My dad was the most loving person, but the flip side is he was a very, very like angry, sad man. And I grew up watching that. And when I was 18, right before I went to college, he got diagnosed with MS. And then he basically deteriorated, and he died of cancer basically right after I graduated college. And so I grew up seeing that and remember hating my dad. And I remember not wanting him to be around me. And I ended up being like a really good wrestler. I was a Division I wrestler in college for my freshman year. I redshirted, and I played rugby in college, and I was always super athletic. And I remember my dad didn't come to any of my wrestling events until I was good. And I remember he was like almost taking credit for it. And I remember being like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, where the fuck were you when I was getting my ass kicked? By the way, wrestling is a sport where you get your ass kicked until you're good. Like, yeah. Like literally physically someone beats the shit out of you, then you're good, right? Like, other sports, you just aren't good and you sit the bench. Wrestling, you just get the shit beat out of you, then you're good. So I'm like, where were you when I was getting my fucking ass kicked? And I remember, like, I went from being like the worst guy on my team to literally like one of the best guys in the state of California. And he showed up when I was the best guy and took credit for it. Now in Iran, wrestling is like, that's a big sport. So the fact that I was his son, I was like honor student, wrestler, president of my class, he suddenly was proud of me. And at that point I said, it's too late, man. Like, I'm done. And so I grew up with that as a role model. My father, I will say this, I want to give him credit where it's due and where he deserves it. Worked his fucking ass off, provided for our family, taught my brother and I entrepreneurship. You know, he really did love his family. He just was fucked up, and he had a lot of trauma that he took out on his family. And so I grew up with that environment, and it's, you know, it's something that I've had to really work through as an adult.
Yeah. How much of your childhood do you think consciously drives you to, at this day and age right now? How much of the stories of what you want to avoid or you want to replicate, you know, is driving you today?
I think it drives 100% of what I do right now.
Yeah.
Like whether it's me proving that I'm worthy, whether it's me trying to break the cycle of the trauma in my families, and there's trauma on both sides, whether it's me trying to show up as a role model for my kids, whether it's me having a scarcity mindset around money. Most people would think I was out of my fucking mind if they thought I had a scarcity mindset around money, just because I've had financial success in my life. But I do. I can't help it. You know, and when you hear the story of my dad, it's like, well, how could I not? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend recently who had a lot of financial success. And he said, you know, I don't know whether I think I'm more scared about money now than I've ever been, because now that I have it, I'm afraid to lose it. Like it's now about protecting what I've built. And that is more scary than going to work and working hard, trying to earn it at some level.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
You said you have a pretty long fuse. Do you lose your cool? Do you get angry? Do you, and what triggers you in that way? Because that's something I'm asking personally. It's something I've talked about openly on this show. I've wrestled with a lot of my life. And I actually relate to when somebody talks about what you just said about your dad. He is a really nice person, but, you know, goes through some shit, and then be angry, and it can come out. You could take it out on the people around you. Like, I relate to that. I'm a really nice person deep in my heart. I know I'm a good soul, but at times in my life when I haven't been sleeping and I've been really stressed about business or work or whatever, I've gotten angry at people, and I know that I'm not the loving, nice guy. At least it doesn't feel that way to the people around me. How does that work? How does that show up for you?
Yeah.
Or when does it show up?
Well, I mean, I think when I say I have a long fuses, and it's funny, I'm like, oh, I'm a mellow person. My friends are like, you aren't mellow, man. Like, yeah, sorry, dude. Like, that's something you are not allowed to label yourself. Like, no, I'm totally like mellow. In a couple ways. I mean, dude, I'm half Persian and half Italian, so I got fire in my heart, like no matter what. I mean, those are pretty like passionate people. My number one core value is love and happiness. So it's like, that's what I lead with. I lead with happiness. I lead with love. My number 3 is I have a tiger, which I call passion, but that's around motherfucking getting shit done and like coming at it, you know, like it's the reason it's in the middle, you know, and then it's curiosity, creativity, and balance. And the way I look at my core values is they really define who I am. And so I do lead with love, and I emanate love to people around me. I don't even have to know you, man. I'll love you. And my dad was like that. Super funny guy, loving, like, dude, I'll laugh. He's the person, if I ever think of someone laughing till I cried, he laughed till he cried harder than anyone you've seen. So when you have that, you know, there's the shadow of that, right? Which is rage, anger. And so for me, it's like, what I found was I'm able to control myself. I'm the guy a kid that's like, you can have 1 cookie now or 3 later. And I'm like, I'll take 9, 3 years from now, you know, like I have a lot of self-control, like a lot, until I don't. And when I don't, dude, it's scary. I scare myself.
Yeah.
And it's where you know, I have a therapist I've been working with, and we've talked about it, and he's like that. And I would say I felt comfort around that, because it protects me. I don't think there's any situation that I can't get out of if that comes out. So it's a power. The downside is like, do you really want that? You know, do I really want that rage inside of me? Even if it's going to protect me 0.001% of the time, what about when it comes out sideways? And the one time I screamed, I picked up my 6-year-old and screamed in his face as loud as I could.
Yeah.
I did that once. I scared myself. I couldn't believe it. I became my dad.
Right.
Now I didn't hit my kids. And, you know, my dad was born in 1939 in Iran, which is the same as being born in like 1889 in the United States. Like beating your kids was like, it's like going and getting the paper, you know, like that was not unusual for people there. Like that culturally, it wasn't unusual. So, I mean, I've never laid a hand on my kids, but I've seen that, I felt that rage that I knew he felt. And,
Yep.
and so for me, it's on having an awareness, you know, and one of my mentors, Rand Stagen, says with awareness comes choice. You know, so having an awareness that's there and then figuring out, well, what do I want to do about it? So for me, it's around working on trauma and, you know, getting that childhood trauma out of my body and having an awareness that I do have these parts of myself I have a scared little kid in me, man, that got implanted there because I had to survive when I was young.
Right.
And so that's where I protect myself from a rage standpoint.
You mentioned your values. I want to talk about that. Congrats on the book.
Thank you.
Yeah, the core value equation. I'm holding it up right now for anybody who's watching this. I've got it on audio. I'm pumped. I was listening to it. It's great, dude. Let's talk about, do you think these core values that you just listed have always been there? Or have they been kind of forged over time? Are you born with them and you're just discovering them? Or are they created through all your shared experiences of life? And, you know, talk to us a little bit about what your belief is around our core values and discovering them.
Yeah. So had you asked me this question a few months ago, I would have said, yeah, that you are what you are. And it's just a matter of discovering them. I also, you know, I have a show called The Greatness Machine, which is a live stream show. And I interviewed this girl yesterday and she works with highly sensitive people. Like that's one of and highly sensitive in that their actual biology is highly sensitive. There's like what's going on in their nervous system is highly sensitive. And I was like, oh shit, I'm highly sensitive. I am super highly sensitive. So because of that, I think it was easier for me to kind of figure out what I was much younger because of that ultra sensitivity around all these like empathy and feelings and then dealing with that's a mess when you can't navigate it, right? Because you have this sensitive instrument in you. So for me, I felt like I always knew because when I look at my values, I'm like, those have always been there. Whether I live them or not, it's a totally different question. But I've worked with like some really, really, really special people around this, just friends of mine and friends of friends, and talked and had some great conversations. And, you know, there's this whole theory around spiral dynamics, which is that we're an onion and you kind of peel away till you get to that authentic self. And environment, family, community, friends, those can shape our values a lot. And it may be that we're in environments where we're not fully aligned with our values, but we have a set of values that we're kind of promoting because of those different environmental issues. Who we're with, who's our best friends, what clubs are we in, what jobs do we have? We may live values that maybe aren't perfect, but we don't recognize it at first. And a good example is people that maybe grew up in a small town who are told that they need to, let's use an example of a small Christian town where, you know, being homosexual is not okay, right? Like there's people that live those lies, you know, and then they leave, you know, and I don't have an opinion one way or the other. You know, my opinion is we all need to live our authentic lives, whatever those are. But people will leave and then they'll go against the church, they'll go against their family, and they'll go against their communities, and they'll go the other way because they're still trying to figure out what the hell they are. So I think for most people, it is a discovery process. I think for me, it was less of one. And I think it's because of just high sensitivity. But yeah, I think most people, it's a journey, and we change and values change, but it's not that they change in a linear fashion. I do feel it's more of an unraveling of the onion, peeling away the onion. It's there. It's just a question of how long does it take for you to figure it out, if you are able to figure it out. And I think that for me, it comes down to unapologetically and figuring out your authenticity. Like, what are you? What are you when you really feel whole? Where you just feel like you're like just in flow, when you feel like you're being what you're meant to be, and without even though you may get judged, where you're willing to fight for it, you know, because it's what you are. And if you go against it, it feels wrong, and you feel friction, you feel anxiety, you feel neurotic. All these negative feelings come out when we're going against our values. And we all do it, you know?
Is that how you would define it, what you just said, or how do you define it rather? Your core values.
Well, right. In the business, I just define it as the personality of the business, the essence of the business. For self, it's your essence. It's what is your essence as a person? What are the values that attach to the essence of what you are?
Yeah.
And that your truest essence, like not just what you think others want to hear.
I think you mentioned that you don't see it as culture. You see it as different, right? How do you see that as different than culture?
I think it's a component of culture. I've been saying this a lot lately. I believe that marketing and HR people have hijacked the word culture, and so I don't believe that that's what I believe that people get the wrong idea when I say culture. People think it's a soft word. They think that it's, not everybody. There's people that obviously understand it, but I think marketing and HR people, branding people have hijacked these words and have turned them into something that they're not. And they try to push those as if they're an item. Like, let's go build this great culture. And I'm like, what do you mean build a great culture? It's like saying, let's go build a great profit. Like, no, it's a result. It's something that comes out, right? The values is a component of it. Your purpose is a component of it. Your vision of what you want to be in the world is a component of it. And then it's activating all those things, actualizing them, operationalizing them in your business, holding everyone accountable in your life to these standards, to yourself to these standards. Then the result is there's a culture.
Yeah.
That creates a culture. So that makes sense?
Yeah. So when I think about Front Row Dads as an example, we recently, through a conversation with my friend Chris Smith, who founded Campfire Effect, and also has a new business called Family Brand. He came on and he was a guest at one of our summits, our last and first summit that we've ever hosted, which was a great success. I shouldn't say last. It was the last one we did. It was the first one we did. Yet we are doing another one October 22nd. I probably fucked that up completely in the way that I just promoted all that. So there, take notes, gentlemen, on how not to talk about one of your events. Anyway, the point is, I don't even know where I was going. Chris Smith, culture. Yeah, I just totally threw myself off on that one. I don't even remember where we were going. But anyway, let's talk about the fact that I've jacked this up a lot of times. This is where I wanted to go. And I also wanted to give Chris Smith a big plug because he rocked it for our group, talking about developing a family brand, is that I've read books like, people have sent me books over the years for the last decade about core values or fundamentals. And I've listened to the studies about how, Ritz-Carlton, as an example, was one of those studies, right? And how they have their fundamentals and they review them on a daily basis throughout all the Ritz-Carltons around the world.
Right.
And all that sounds really great. And then I open up a document and I sit down and I go, I'm going to define them. Oh, I know where I was going with this. I'm going to define them. And then I just get lost. I make a list of 32 things that I think we need to be focused on, and no one of them seems more important than another. And it really is difficult. Now, this is where I was going with Chris. Chris helped me to realize that for us, it was three things in Front Row Dads. It was relationships, resources, and results. The pathway to being a front row dad was, number one, having incredible relationships with other men that you could have honest dialogue with, that you could open up to at whatever level, however transparent you would want to be, but somebody that you would trust. And through that trust, through that revealing of your true life to that person, they might be able to help you find the resources that you need, right, in order to move forward in your life, like the book or the movie or the counselor or whatever it is, the resource, right, that you would need so that you could ultimately get a result, so that you could experience the thing that you wanted, whatever that was in relationship to your family. And we have 6 pillars in Front Row Dads. My question to you is that when I hear that and I'm like, I love it. First of all, we adopted it immediately, the relationship, resources, and results. But are they our values? Or is that a pathway to get to where we want to be? Or sometimes I get in the gray area of how do we define things and what do we value and what's a purpose and a vision? It all tends to get muddled for me.
Yeah. So this is where I think there's some issues around it because I don't know what your values are, and those could be your values. What I say is that, if I I have a process I put people through, which I'm not married to my process. There's a process called Mission to Mars that a lot of people like. there's all these different, the discovery process is a pretty well-worn path, and you can use different systems to get there. I give people a list of 110 words, and I say, you only get 5. Eliminate till you end up at 5.
Yeah.
Right. Which
That's a good way
ones?
to do it.
Right. So like no optionality here. You get 5, and then those might end up being 3. Right. But 5 max, maybe 6 on a good day. I have 6 personal values for my life, but in the business, I usually like to have around 4. And then it's, what do you stand for? If you're, and there's a book called Built to Last by Jim Collins and Jerry Porras. And they talk about this. They say visionary companies usually stand for no more than, they did this study over like 100 years of all these visionary companies. And they said, when we did our study, almost all of them stood for no more than 6 items, and most between 4 and 5. And so what are the 4 or 5 things that really, when push comes to shove, and you have, and you can only pick 4 or 5, which ones are they? And then Bob Glazer, a friend of mine who just wrote a book called Friday Forward, and he has the Elevate book. Do you know Bob?
Yeah.
So he's like, look, what's your hierarchy of those values? If you only get to pick one over the other. So and I haven't actually done work around that. I just know that if in my, I could probably pick it if I had to, right? I could say, dude, what's most important to your organization? What are the things that matter when a member comes in or leaves, or you don't want them there? And there's a process around, who do I want there and who don't I want there? And if I have to, and then I have a process, I say there's basically 3 parts to the book, the process of core values. So discovery, we're talking about. My book is not a book around discovering your core values. That's like a couple pages in there. My book is a book on how do you design them, solving the problem you're talking about, which is, once I have them, what the hell do I do with them? And mine's, it's all comes down to design. I'm a designer, dude. I just happen to become a CEO. Right. And I just happen to design 1,000-person organizations. Right. But that's as a CEO, that was my job, was to design it. So I'm a designer. I know it. And what I figured out was, you got to design these things for high utility value, whether it's in your business or in your personal life. So the book's really about, how do you design them? And then once you design them, how do you design the use of them? And the one thing I could tell you is, it's got to be really meaningful to you, and you got to keep it super fucking simple. Because the second it's not those 2 things, you won't do it. And then it becomes words on the wall, or this thing that you did once, or this conversation you had that you never revisit, or you revisit rarely. And my thing is like, fuck that. Design it well, make sure it's meaningful, design it well, and then make it sticky and viral in your life and in your organizations. It won't be sticky or viral if it's not designed well. So I design for stickiness and virality. That's the way, that's the secret sauce of the book. And for me, I'm like, dude, the minute it's sticky and viral, it has the opportunity of doing the most important things I think values have the opportunity of doing. You know what that is?
No.
Becoming the language of your organizations and of your life. Values have the opportunity to become language. And when they become language, my belief is, the language of your life, which are the same as core values in my book. The core value equation is this: your core values equal all the results, good or bad, in your business and in your life, because I have basically decoded how to make them the language.
Can you give us a sample of that from, you've obviously been very successful in business, scaled huge, exited successfully. Looking back at that experience, I'm sure you've done this deep dive already, but can you give me an example of one of the values that became the language, and, practical way that played out in life?
Yeah. So language is important, because language can be both negative or positive, right? So a lot of times with these assets, cultural assets in business, we only think of them from the positive. And I'm like, no. 360, baby. When are people going to take my language and try to fuck me with it? That's how I think about it, right?
Right.
Yeah, by the way, fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Yeah, dude, I was right there with you. So in sync.
So my last business.
That would be an example of us declaring a value and then using that language later on. Dude, I literally just did it right now. Like, I knew the value and I brought it out because I saw the example. That's great.
Totally. This is it, man. Like, listen, one of my values might be fuck that guy, right?
Yeah.
And so you might turn some people off. They don't like that language, but fuck those people. Right. They don't need to be around. Like, right. I don't want to have to watch what I have to say. And I've had that happen to me, by the way. I've had it where sure. I've had leaders come up to me like, Darius, be a lot, we noticed you curse a lot, and it would be a lot, nicer if you didn't. And I was like, all right. And I tried, and I was like, why am I don't weaponize the word fuck. I use it lovingly. So if they can't appreciate that, then it's not the right environment for them. So let's go to the other way though, which is my last business. It was people matter, period, inspiring leadership, strength of character, and rock solid service. So when I rolled that out, I noticed right away that people were dug it because, and so there's three parts to core value design. One is the header. I just gave you the headers. People matter is around caring for people. Inspiring leadership is inspiration. Strength of character is integrity. Rock solid service is service orientation. Those are the four values for the business. I'd like to translate them into language and words that are in the tone of the organization. That's how I came up with those four, like people matter, inspiring leadership, strength of character, and rock solid service. I don't like the boring words because then I can sound like everybody else. I want to sound like our organization or my family, right? And then I craft 4 to 8 sentences to describe what they mean. And I call the header, which I just went over, is the 30,000 foot level. That's the only thing people need to remember. I'm trying to anchor their memory so that they know that we stand about caring, we stand about inspiration, we stand about service orientation. I don't want them to have to think about it. I just want them to know that they can always go there and they're anchored in it. So I got to keep it short and sweet and in tone. Then I write 4 to 8 sentences. This is all around decision making. And there's in my book, we walk through how do you test these, I call them descriptives, for decision making. In my personal life, if I tell you eye of the tiger is my number 3 core value, my descriptive is 8 sentences describing what that looks like. Fight to win, surrender to win is the last 2 sentences of that core value. Fight to win, surrender to win, right? I say what that means. And the reason, and there's 6 or 7 other sentences before it, but I want you to fully understand when I say eye of the tiger, what do I mean by that? When I say people matter, what do I mean by that? The reason is I don't want someone weaponizing that shit against me. Well, Darius, isn't the company's number 1 core value people matter? And yet you didn't pay bonuses this year. And I go, that doesn't say person matters, motherfucker. It says people matter. And if I pay bonuses and we don't have enough money to run the business, that's not good for the people. Right. But people are always thinking about me. So I'm like, what I do when I build it is I build accountability into the descriptive. What's the give? I tell them, what can you hold me accountable for? And then I say, and this is what I'm going to hold you accountable for. And it becomes really meaningful. And it's in the tone of that same language. The words matter, right? It has to be in the tone of that people matter, inspiring leadership, strength of character, rock solid service. The descriptive is in the same tone, right? So you get a feeling when you read it. And then what ends up happening, what I found was when I did that, I just started noticing people were using the language and they started holding each other accountable with it. Hey man, that's not rock solid service. Hey Darius, you're not living my number 6 core value in my family is balance, which we call movie night. My wife's like, dude, this ain't movie night, bro. You know, you've been working 17 hours a day to launch your book. And I'm like, I know, just let me get through it. But in the back of my head, I get to go back to center, which is movie night with my family. And I got to weave it in. So it's not that core values are perfection. This is the misnomer. Oh, once I say I'm this, I have to be it all the time. Have you seen what's it called? Dude, Dave Chappelle, Sticks and Stones.
Yeah.
He goes,
incredible.
The opening is the best. Okay. I got a guessing game for you guys. And he starts saying all this stuff like, you know, I'm going to look back at every single thing you've ever done in your entire life and every bad thing you've ever done. I'm going to hold it against you. Guess who I am? And he's like, you don't know? It's you motherfuckers. Right. and so like, dude, life is not perfection. Just like that. Right. Dave Chappelle nailed that. And I'm like, it's you. People want to like, listen, man, we all fuck up and I get a fuck up, but what core values do in the business or in my life, when they become the language of my business and life, in my family or my business, in my personal life, is they tell me where center is. And when I'm off, I know it. I'm feeling friction. But instead of being like, oh, I just don't feel like I've been tired and feeling anxious, I'm like, dude, I know exactly why I'm anxious. I'm not spending enough time with my kids. I'm not giving my wife enough love. I'm not planning vacation in the last 6 months. I'm not living my passions. I'm not being creative. I'm not being curious. Whatever it is where I'm out of alignment, I know that I know where to fix it because I've already written what I need. And I just go and we do the thing in Stagen called walk the talk practice. Which core value am I out of alignment with? What do I need to put in my calendar to walk the talk to make that come back to life? So it's all it is a centering. It's saying, this is what I stand for. This is what I need to be fed. This is what I need to be fulfilled. And when I'm out of alignment, I get to go look and say, which one of these am I out of alignment with? In my business, this is key, dude. Whenever I had a tough decision, I'd whip out that one page and me and my business partners would read People matter, blah, 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 blah. Inspiring leaders, blah, 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 blah. Strength character, blah, 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 blah. Rock star service, blah, 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 blah. Fuck, we got to go do that. I don't want to do that, but I know I have to do it. If it's a tough decision, you know what the answer is. You just don't want to do it.
Right.
And so, but then if I want my core values to be alive in my personal life or my business, I've given myself a guide to say, hey, dude, this is what you stand for. You're either going to break it or you're going to make it. And if you break it, just know you've broken it and own it, and get back to it as soon as you can, because we're not perfect. So it's giving ourselves permission to not be perfect. That's a big part of it.
Let's stick with when we recognize that we're not in alignment with our values and what we do to change that. I know that you were on the road a lot, right? 2018, 180, 90 days on the road, something like that. Yeah. And then obviously a big shift for you probably in the last 2 years, not only forced upon you through COVID, right? But, and for many, that many have said to me, probably 9 out of 10 when this comes up, that the greatest gift they've ever received is this being, forced to be at home, forced to dial back the travel. Tell me a little bit about that transition for you, because I think we can all relate to being obsessed with our work, being completely immersed in our work, building something, one more season that we got to get through, and yet wanting to be amazing dads and husbands. How did that transition occur? What did you have to learn about yourself? Tell us about the value system and how you had to in alignment with your family. Like, where did this work ultimately serve your family?
It's still a pretty big work in progress. I mean, my natural inclination is to be an addictive personality, and I like being addicted to work. So even when in COVID times, I got crazy on my book and started working 14, 16 hours a day, being stuck in the house. So I'm still fighting it pretty hard. And so I stopped traveling once I figured out, Tim Ferriss does this thing where you audit your life every January instead of doing New Year's resolution. So I did that. And while I was doing it, I said, how many days did I travel in 18? And I started doing like the check 5, the scratch, like the wall of the prison wall 5, right? When you're counting your years. And I was at a hotel in San Francisco doing this in January. And I filled the whole first page up and I was like, what the fuck? And I was only in September, and I counted, I was at 120 days. And then I flipped it, and I ended up at 192 days of travel in the year 2018. Now, dude, I'm CEO of a pretty decent sized company, and I was like, this is not cool. And so, but when you travel that much, your next 6 months are always booked out, right? Like I'm booking June and January. So I totally threw the kibosh. I'm like, no more travel after June, unless I absolutely have to. So, but for the next few months, I still traveled a bunch, but from June of 19 until now, I've been off the road, and I ended up stepping down as CEO. I had this life change happen, and then COVID happened. And I realized something in COVID, when you're like crazy, like brain Darius, like hardcore addicted to work, going places, seeing things, I'm just like always having to be on the run. You're distracted a lot. And so what I realized is when I came home, I always felt like I was at a deficit. And so I'd be like, all right, let's go do stuff, right? And I'd take my kids to go see movies, and we would go see friends, and we would, go. I was always staying busy. And then COVID hit, and dude, I didn't have work. I couldn't see friends, and I was stuck in the house with the kids and my wife. And I was like, dude, I didn't know what to do. And I realized that I had been distracting myself with my kids. I was with them, which my dad didn't do that. My dad, he just hung out with his friends. That's how he decompressed. And I would do stuff with my kids, but it was the next distraction. Let's go to Alamo Drafthouse. Let's go see my friend Chris and his kids. And it was always like, they'd go hang out with other kids. But I was like, dude, I can't just be with them. And it was this epiphany that was kind of scary at first. It's kind of sad. And then it became a gift. It was the biggest gift I've gotten probably in my last 20 years. It was like, oh, I have an opportunity to change this, man. What can I do to enjoy my time with my kids? So we started watching 80s. We watched Goonies. We watched Karate Kid.
You watched E.T., didn't you? You watched E.T.? Yeah.
Watched E.T., started making food with them. I created this thing called the activity jar where we created games, and I'd go outside and be I basically became their math teacher, their PE coach, and their movie friend. Yeah. And we just started hanging out, and it has become this thing that now that I'm back in it, working like crazy to get this book launched, and I have a course coming out, and I'm doing a coaching thing with like high growth CEOs. I'm like, dude, I got to carve out time for the kids, man. Like my wife, I want to go hang out with them. Like I want to be there. Whereas before I logically knew I had to be there, but I realized I had nothing in common with them and I didn't actually enjoy my time with them. And now it's different. Now it's like, dude, I can't wait to watch Just Add Magic with my son, which is about these three girls that cook spells together.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to watch Simpsons with the kids. I can't wait to go and swim laps with them in the backyard and play Marco Polo. Like I'm bummed that I can't do that today because it's raining. I'm bummed that I can't teach them math because I'm so damn fucking sunk in book launch right now. I want to teach them math, you know? I never felt that way before. I'm bummed I can't read to my 7-year-old, you know, the History of the World kid series. So that's the gift I've gotten.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's great that you can always change and that you're a person who, you know, is very honest about what's not going well and also honest about what you want to see happen. And I just think it's great that, you know, for any of us that the next 30 days can look radically different than the last 30 days. So I think it's so cool, man. And I'm pumped about your book. Congrats again, dude. For anybody who's interested in building your core value equation, check it out. There it is. You can't miss it. Pink title. I mean, dude, on that note with the pink, you got a big giant pink unicorn head behind you on the wall. Dude, just give us.
I got a couple of. I got one.
What the hell's up with that, dude? What? Tell us about it. Why?
And so there's a T-shirt right here. And so my wife used to make T-shirts for us, for my kids every year. And my oldest son was like 2 or 3, and he's obsessed with pink unicorns, man. He just loved Pinkie Pie Pony on My Little Pony. So she made us pink unicorn T-shirts, and I wore it to the office one day, and my staff just went bananas. They were just like, this is so awesome. I'm like, all right, we're going to call upon the power of the pink unicorns to hit our numbers this month. and dude, it just went viral in my company. And then next thing I knew, I was putting up 10-foot tall pink unicorns on the walls, and we were going to trade shows. And I'm a mortgage banker, dude. I'm a banker with a 15-foot tall pink unicorn, like trade show booth, and giving away pink unicorn stuff. And it just stuck. And I was like, what it really is this. I said, you know, our business, our why is around, you know, growing happiness in the world around us and being a core value driven organization. And I said a pink unicorn is a core value driven organization that's creating happiness in the world and mortgage banking. And it's a mythical creature that everyone says doesn't exist, but we do exist. So that's what it started as. And then when I left the business, I was like, dude, fuck that. I'm the pink unicorn. So I took it with me. Sorry guys at TMS. So that's it, man. It's all about, you know, what it is now for me is it's like living a core value driven life. That's what it stands for.
No, that's great, man. It gives me something to think about. I'm excited to keep with the book. I'm excited to define these. And, you know, I would encourage anybody else out there who's defined their values to share them I would share them with somebody else in your life, discuss them, spread the message, if you will, engage in the conversation. And I'd love to hear about it. Just shoot me an email, johnjon@frontrodads.com. I'd love to hear about your success with this model. Darius, thanks again for being with us, dude. Really appreciate it. Book is available anywhere, right? Correct? Amazon, all the stuff. It's also at therealdarius.com. You know,
all the above. You can get it anywhere online, and therealdarius.com will direct you as well.
You've got some great resources available too. I'm on the page right now for some downloads, some worksheets and some workbooks that are free resources that you can go check out. Pumped about this, man. This is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about it all?
Yeah, look, launch day is September 15th, and anyone that's buying the book, we're giving away a ton of free giveaways, including like some one-on-ones and coaching and stuff like that around helping people discover, design, and roll out the core values in their business and their lives. And yeah, I'd love to talk to people who want to learn more about this. I'm happy to teach them, and you can hit me up at Darius@therealdarius.com as well.
Dude, great conversation today, man. Thank you so much, buddy.
Yeah, much love, man. Appreciate it.